Welcome to another episode of The Second Coming. I'm your host, Jason Keeton. I'm here with Brother T. We're so happy that you're here to join us today. Please continue to reach out at support.truethought.org or like us on Substack, like, share, subscribe on YouTube. We really appreciate all this community is doing. We want those comments. We want that feedback. And we love that you're here with us today. Brother T, how are you?
I'm doing well. And you mentioned Substack, how people find us on Substack to leave comments and join our Substack community for True Thought is at truemind.org. It's right up here, or truethought.org. Either one of those will take you to our Substack page. And then the donation page is support.truethought.org. But I'm doing well. It's been a great week. Here we are in March, right? We're almost at the end of March already.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going fast, right? So, but the weather where I'm at it's been in the 70s. I mean, it's just been glorious, and the trees are budding, the grass is getting green. People are starting to mow the yard already, so it's kind of fun.
That's amazing. I love it.
Yeah.
So, busy in the news, Brother T. There's so much turmoil. Saw the other day somebody was shot in the White House property by Secret Service, and just the turmoil in Washington, D.C. right now. It's hard to navigate this in a spiritual mindset for myself personally. Anyway, it's I try not to watch the news so much because every time I turn it on, I just it's overwhelming, I guess. Do you have any? Let's talk about it.
Okay, we can talk about that. Let's do a little attunement here. Let's take a good deep breath. And of course, as we are being joined by the masters and our guides and our loved ones and our teachers and our angels, the room is filling up fast. I feel the presence and the blessing of their love for us. So we say thank you for joining us this morning. Wherever two or more are gathered. And, we know who we are in truth. I mean, we attune to this higher consciousness. We call it the upper room. So as we align with this, we have an attunement that goes along like this. And you can use this anytime you want to. Word, I am word. I am word through this body. Word, I am word. I am word through this vibration. Word, I am word. I am word through the knowing of myself as word. Word, I am word. I know who I am in truth. I know what I am in truth. I know how I serve in truth. I am free. I am free. I am free. I have come to the upper room. I am here. I have come. I am known. Behold, I make all things new. It will be so. God is. God is. God is. One more good deep breath. So as we return now to the question, is that there seems to be a lot of upset, there seems to be a lot of turmoil going on in the world. And when we learn, you're saying, Jason, when you turn on the news, it's even hard to watch the news because there's so much upset.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just and so much, and it's not just the news, and then it's what the news is reporting, and then how the community around is repeating it. And the vibration doesn't seem real good, Brother T. It seems a little. I'd say turmoil would be a moderate way to put it.
Interesting. Well, when I turn on the news, I am absolutely joyful. I'm literally almost ecstatic. Jesus put out a message, and I sent an email out to our community, and I'll put a link, on our. I'll put one down here for you so that you can join our email list if you want to, if you're first-time viewer or you're just kind of catching up with us, what we're doing at True Thought. I sent an email out last week, and I'm going to start doing that more regularly with content to help people to get through this. But Tina Louise Spalding, and we've used her name before. We've talked about her before here, but Tina Louise Spalding was having a horrible time in her life, and somebody gave her a copy of A Course in Miracles, and she just immersed herself in it, which is literally what I did about 15 years ago now, or more, almost 20 years ago. And she started having ecstatic experiences, and then she suddenly, she went to a writing class, an automatic writing class, and she put pencil to paper, and suddenly she was just writing. And then she started channeling, and she started channeling Ananda, and then Ananda is part of a group of consciousness that include Jesus. And so ultimately, Ananda introduced her to Jesus, and then she started channeling Jesus, and one of my favorite works that she did was Jesus, My Autobiography. And now she has these regular members that join her community, and then she does these long-form, content, channeling sessions for her community. But the reason I'm telling you this backstory is because last week, a week or so ago, she had one for her community, but it was so it was addressing this very question, so intently. So Jesus was sharing his content, his perspective, his knowing to her community, and it was really awesome. And so I just shared a link to that YouTube video to our community. So I hope a few people got a chance to check that out. If you didn't, if you got that email, click on the link and watch it, because it's Jesus talking about what you're bringing up today, Jason. And so just as a quick overview, the new, which is the second coming, right? Heaven on earth can only come at the cost of the old, right? Mm. And if you are watching some broadcasts, they're still singing the same song about fear and separation and control, and of course creating a tremendous amount of anxiety for a lot of people. But that's been their agenda now for about 100 years, right? But what's happening right now, and Jesus was telling us that literally, which has kind of rocked me too, because I haven't heard him express it quite this way, even through Tina, and she channels him frequently, was that Donald Trump and Elon Musk, these are two entities that were pre-selected to do exactly what they're doing, to shed the light and begin to bring exposure to the corruption and the shadow energy of how the people that have burrowed their way into our government have been abusing our governmental system to their own benefit. And so what you have is a system that's collapsing right in front of our eyes, of corruption and, of course, waste and fraud, but greed and lust and just this is just such dark energy. This is all the ego on display for anybody that has eyes to see and ears to hear. If you have eyes to see and ears to hear, you can look at what's been going on in the political scene in the Western culture, in America in particular now, and you can see the corruption. You can see what's been going on in secret, in the shadows. And this light that's coming is exposing this at an unprecedented level. Now, we've been talking about this for a long time, right? The Second Coming is our podcast name, right?
Yes.
But this is exactly what's happening. Now, this is not about crucifying people, but this is about bringing people responsible and accountable for their actions and their thoughts and their beliefs and how they treat their brothers and sisters. Now, this is the hallmark of the effect and effect of the idea, the belief in separation, that some are high and some are low, and some are deserving and some are not, and some are worthy and some are not, etc., etc. We have an ocean separating our country, east and west, from the rest of the world, by and large. But we're seeing that the European communities are still going headlong into this self-destructive idea of, and we were headed towards a one world community. And the COVID back in 2021, I mean, this was, or 2020, excuse me, was really the first chance for us to really see, again, for those with eyes to see and ears to hear, the corruption that was going on, because it was a global event. And if there's a global event, that means, and it was in unison, then it was contrived, it was orchestrated and planned and executed almost perfectly. And the amount of stress and the amount of control and the amount of fear that they were pumping globally into the communities around the world had a dramatic impact on people's lives. And some people haven't gotten through it yet. Our children, many children lost a whole year of school because we were in lockdown. And it was all fabricated, and it was intentional. So now, the new can only come at the cost of the old. Now, we are beginning to see how bright this light is that's shining. And so when I watch the news, it brings great joy to me, Jason, because I know the truth is being heard. The truth is being exposed. And people are starting to see things in a new way. And this does include, of course, the orchestration by, organized religion to control people, to operate from a place of greed and exclusion and separation. So things are changing fast, and that's the rapidity of this shift is remarkable. I mean, and if you're not prepared for it, it's absolutely horrifying to some people, right? People are going to they're losing jobs, and they're not sure what they're going to do, et cetera, et cetera. But these are things it's the comeuppance of how people have been treating their brothers and sisters, right? And they've been doing it and benefiting and believing they're benefiting. But this is the way the world works. The world is reflective. And when you hold dark energy, you will experience dark experiences. Okay? And when you're holding light energy, when you're a light worker, when you're operating in love, and you see your brothers and sisters as a part of yourself, then you're going to experience tremendous joy in your life. Regardless of what's happening on the outer, what's going on the inner is what's really the important thing to consider. And so many of our brothers and sisters have been conditioned and programmed that they absolutely are separate from each other, and that they should live in fear, and that they are beholden to their church or they're beholden to their government. And that's bullshit. It is. And now it's becoming known. It doesn't mean that there's not going to be a lot more calamity and there's going to be people that may end up starving. This is just beginning. This could be a complete collapse. And it's been called forth as what's required for the new to be birthed, to rise from the ashes, if you will, of heaven on earth. We have to start seeing each other with love. We have to start seeing each other with integrity. We have to start understanding and knowing ourselves, not just as one with God, but as one with each other. And as we move towards this higher consciousness and can hold and maintain ourselves in these higher levels of consciousness, we can enjoy abundance and joy and laughter and great experience of community, right? Outside of fear, because fear cannot exist in the upper room. And all of these calamities that we are seeing are the result of fear-mongering and war-mongering and separation-mongering, right? And specialness and self-righteousness. So if we can adjust here, and while we're in the upper room, we can see, and you brought it up in a recent episode, you said, oh, well, there's an accident or something, and there are some things that are quite disturbing. But these things that we're seeing are not caused by God. It's us doing this to ourselves so that we can see what we're doing to ourselves. And some will learn from it, and some will not. But eventually, and I've shared this with you guys before, there is a line that's been drawn in the sand, and people that are going to continue to operate in victim consciousness and low-level consciousness of hatred and specialness and pride and anxiety and fear and shame and promoting these aspects of our existence, they will not come back to this planet until they can raise their consciousness. And we even talked about indigo children a few weeks ago, or I think even more recent than that. And these are people that have passed the marker, right? They're not operating. So who's being born in the world today are not people who come from that level of greed and lust and hatred and separation, right? Sin and sickness and death, right, are what we will transcend as a society, as a race here on planet Earth. And the movement of that has indeed, it has begun.
I love that. I love that, Brother T. Helps put it into perspective when you see that you talked about the manipulation of the public. And one dramatic example of that is the anti-Trump media like to really point out how they berated the Ukraine president. But I actually watched the entire 55-minute interview on NPR a few days after, and it was actually a very cordial interview. And several times Donald Trump said, okay, let's go into, the meeting. And it was actually the Ukrainian president that kept trying to force his agenda in the public eye. And it wasn't until somebody stepped in, because it was very clear that the Ukraine president did not want peace. He did not want ceasefire. He wanted someone bigger than Russia to say they were on his side. And he never did say he was on it. He said, I'm neutral. He said, I can't negotiate a ceasefire and I can't negotiate peace if I'm on one person's side. And none of that made the news. It was very, actually a very good interview. I encourage people to go look back on NPR is where I watched it, and it was the full uncut interview, and it was very nice. But when you see how the news twists it, or how organized religion takes one sentence out and twists it, it's disheartening, I guess, and not always the easiest to be a light worker, I guess, when sometimes your neighbors in the news is picking and choosing manipulative thoughts to share with you.
Well, I totally understand how you can feel that way, but I don't see anything new.
Sure.
This is how they've been acting now for my whole life. And I've been sticking around for a while. I've been watching the news for a while, and taking my personal opinions to setting that aside and operating from a place of integrity, which is it's the first bar to cross into higher consciousness. From victim consciousness to manifestor manipulator consciousness is the first bar to cross. The first level is called integrity. Integrity. And I was communicating with somebody just last week, and that word came up in our conversation. And she said, well, what does integrity mean? Integrity means that you have reached a point of consciousness to be self-honest and to be honest in all of your dealings with your brothers and sisters. What we're seeing is this beautiful, amazing light of truth being turned on and shined brightly onto a very corrupt system where people have been anything other than operating in integrity. The ego tends to try to use everybody for its own benefit, and when it becomes excessive, it's called abuse. The people in almost every government around the world have been abused, and have been abused horribly, believing their politicians were telling them the truth, and have been taken advantage of in a horrific way. So when I see this happening, when I see this light shining on these corrupt actors, I get excited. I become thrilled, because God is, and will not be denied. We can deny God for a while, right? But the comeuppance of that action of denying God brings us destruction, brings us war, brings us separation, and brings us agony and pain and sin and sickness and death. So if we would like to have a better way of living, we have to recognize that God is in all things. And when we deny that, then we get what we get what we're giving. And when we recognize that, that's called enlightenment. That's called the second coming, is recognizing and seeing the essence of love in all things, no matter how it's manifested. How it's manifesting is based on how the human are thinking, and that's what's outpicturing as an experience, so that we can see our thoughts in play, in a reflection. But when we move past that, we can see the essence of everything in form is God. Everything, the essence of everything in existence is love. And when we can begin to see past the appearance of things and notice and recognize and I want to say give amplitude to what the truth is that's there, the amplitude of the recognition of God there, the love that's there, then everything starts changing very rapidly. And that indeed is happening because there are more and more people that are dialing in and tuning in to the power that they've been denied of themselves. They've been conditioned that, like the churches have told people for millennium that they had, well, certainly hundreds and hundreds of years, that they had no power at all, that they were separate from God and had to even go through them for God to even hear them. It's all a ruse. It's all a scam. And the light has come. The light has come, Jason, and I'm pretty excited about it, to be honest with you.
I love that, and I love your take on that. When I don't watch the news, which I don't very often, honestly, I'm not one that tunes in every night, and I'm almost always very happy, very loving. When I don't watch the news like that, am I being ignorant? Am I missing out? Am I in unaware bliss? Or is that just my vibration that I'm not vibrating with what's on the news and the manipulation, and I'm just choosing not to hear it?
That's an interesting question. You know, David Hawkins actually measured the consciousness level of the news, and it is spot on right center in the middle of fear. Oh. It's a 150. Integrity, we talked about a minute ago on David Hawkins' scale, is 200. So there is a massive difference between 150 log 10 and 200 log 10. Huge, big numbers, big difference, huge number. The news, if you watch the news, you're bringing your consciousness down to a very low level. Okay? So you have to choose for yourself what you're giving your awareness to. You can go to the horror show, or you can go to you can go to a church and at least be in a community of people that are attempting to hold the consciousness of love as their primary objective. Now, again, even in the churches, there are established people of leadership that have an intention to maintain control and to control the masses. And they've done it, they succeeded at it, but they've only succeeded at it until they don't. And we are now entering the time when they don't. Okay? This message that we're sharing is, a lot of people, oh, that's blasphemy, that's way too radical, that can't possibly be true. Well, what I'm sharing with you is the message from Jesus. He started teaching us 2,000 years ago, right? And he's never stopped. But in the last 50 years, in 1975, 50 years ago this year, the A Course in Miracles was published for the very first time. And this is a direct communication from Jesus without some intermediary interpreting it and rewriting it and making it fit their own personal agenda. Now, very few people have ever even heard of it or know it exists, because there's billions of people on the planet. But on the other hand, millions of people have heard of it. It's been translated into dozens of different languages, and its popularity is growing, specifically in New Thought communities and New Age communities. You know, everybody's talking about A Course in Miracles. Now, their interpretation of it is not always accurate, and some of the teachers that are teaching it have their own personal agenda as well, right? But the point is, things are changing, and the truth is being revealed. So to me, Jason, this is a glorious time to be alive. Yes, it's difficult.
I absolutely agree. Yes, to me, I would say most of the time I am living heaven on earth. I am in bliss. I am grateful for everything in my life. I am grateful for the smallest thing. I'm grateful for the sunshine today, especially since I'm in Ohio, and this is truly a gift after a gray winter. I coming onto the spring and the summer sunshine. This is a nice treat. But one thing, when I hear you talking and hear you say about the Course of Miracles and blasphemy, and when I reach out and I trying to explain the Course of Miracles to someone that hasn't heard it, or someone that's very indoctrined, maybe it's not really up to me to try and convince them that this is a book they need to pick up. Maybe it's more, I'm just supposed to be an example of God's light and love. And I don't need to convince someone that they need to see it through my eyes. Am I on the right track, or am I supposed to be doing something?
I think 100%. You know, I mean, if Eckhart Tolle and Byron Katie, you know, was the other lady that I was trying to recall her name in a recent podcast, Byron Katie. She was doing the work. Both of them reached a point of willing to commit suicide because they thought their life was so miserable. And then at the bottom of the barrel, their ego collapsed, and then boom, what's left was their true self. And then they've become the agent of change, right? Eckhart Tolle didn't have any real spiritual background whatsoever, so he just went and sat on a park bench. And people would come and sit down beside him, and like, he was just blissed out, right? And the first many days after I had my first experience of, you know, communication, the Holy Spirit, if you will, revealing itself to me as me. He said at one point, he says, at some point you have to realize I am you. And this self that we all have, right, is our right mind. Jesus says it's your right mind, nothing more than your right mind. It's your true self, right, the Holy Spirit. And anyway, the point of it is Eckhart Tolle became the witness to the truth of his new knowing, okay? And he didn't go out and proselytize or try to do anything else. You see, if you and I can focus on keeping the main thing, then all else will be given unto you. Okay, so what's the main thing? The main thing is to first recognize your ego for what it is. It's the imposter. It's not you. Even though you may have spent 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, or many lifetimes believing that your personality self was who you were, and never even considered that you had a true self, never even gave it any thought. Lifetime after lifetime, and then into this lifetime, maybe decades. But as soon as you begin to question the validity of this voice that keeps screaming in your head, be afraid, be afraid, you're not worthy, you're a sinner, you know, you're worthy of punishment. That's about it. Whatever the ego's telling you, right? And the world's against you, et cetera, and you're not loved or you're not lovable. All the things that the ego does to us through our life. And you know, you might as well just take your own life because this life ain't worth living. You know, all this bullshit that the ego tells us, all these self-talk, private thought conversations that we have, that the ego is convincing us that it is us. They're all lies. That's not the truth. But once you get that, and then you can start to recognize the ego for what it is, when it's spinning those webs of lies and fear then you can say this very simple thing: get thee behind me. I'm not listening to that. Shut up. Take a good deep breath and ask a simple question. Are you there? And what do you hear? If you persist, the Holy Spirit, which is nothing more than your right mind, will communicate with you. When you get your consciousness up to a certain level, it comes from practice and recognizing the ego and giving it no quarter. You get your consciousness, that's the main thing. If you get your consciousness up, it's like you're sitting at the bottom of the ocean, it's nothing but darkness, and you're swimming up. When you get to the point where you can start to see the light, you will discover your true self. And when you discover your true self, man, it just blows everything away, because now you see that it was all a lie. It was a mask, and it was never anything to be afraid of. To be fearless because you're in union with your true self is the most ecstatic experience that you will ever have in human form. And nothing can come close to it. And once you have it, it's like ringing that bell. You can't unring it. It rings forever. So that's it. So what happens when you make that connection is ultimately you let go of that steering wheel that you've been holding on to with white knuckles in terror and fear about driving your way through your life, and you get in the side seat, the sidecar, the passenger seat, whatever you want to call it, and allow your true self to lead the way. And as it does, you become the agent of change. You become the light worker. You become the healer. As Jesus said, when you see me, you see the Father. Because as we talked about purpose in a recent podcast, Jason, the goal is to hear more of God in form. That's called Christ. That's the main thing. You can't do it. The ego can't do it. You can only get the ego out of the way. So what's left is a clear channel, that's you, to make that join and the connection so that your true self, your divine self, the Holy Spirit, nothing more than your right mind, becomes what and who you are expressing as. I know who I am. I am Christ, the conscious energy of Christ. That's my truth. I know that's who I am. I know what I am. I can express that in form, right? I am that Christ in form. When you see me, you see the Father, right? And I know how I serve, because that self is a knowing self, not a thinking self. It's a knowing self, and always expresses love perfectly in this world of form. And heaven on earth is being created. Now.
That was a beautiful message of light and love. And I could almost feel the channeling of your words and your wisdom. Thank you, Brother T. Thank you. That's all I have for this week. I love that message. It fills me. I feel like I can go out right now in nature and just be blissed out with these words of love and being in God's vibration and His creation. And I think that's what I'm going to do. I think I'm going to grab my dog and we're going to go for a walk.
Well, I don't have a dog to grab, but I may go out in nature today myself. That sounds like a good idea, Jason.
Yeah. Well, thank everyone for joining us this week on another episode of The Second Coming. We love and appreciate your connection with us. We want to see those messages. Ask me some questions. Give Brother and T and I some of your questions, some of your thoughts, your fears, your joys. And again, support.truethought.org, or find us on Substack or YouTube. Like, share, subscribe, and bring someone you love in to join us in our community. So that's all I have this week, Brother T. And I'll see you next week on another episode of The Second Coming.
It will be so. God is, God is, God is. Bye-bye.